Hello, so we are now on chapter 9, which is called Dr Lanyon's narrative. The first thing I want you to do is highlight the title or post-it note and say that this is now Dr Lanyon's voice. So he is now, kind of from the grave, from before when he was alive, when he wrote this letter for Utterson to read. We're now getting to hear that. So, we found out about that letter, I don't know how many chapters ago now. This is it. So this first bit is Lanyon. On the 9th of January, now 4 days ago, I received by the evening delivery a registered envelope addressed in the hand of my colleague and old school companion, Henry Jekyll. I was a good deal surprised by this, for we were by no means in the habit of correspondence. I'd seen the man, dined with him indeed, the night before, and I could imagine nothing in our intercourse that should justify the formality of registration. The contents increased my wonder, for this is how the letter ran. So, in Lanyon's voice, we've now got first person, which I would write down, him saying that 4 days ago, he got this weird letter in the handwriting of Henry Jekyll, even though he'd only seen him the day before, and there's nothing in their conversation that had alluded to him needing to write to him, which is very formal. And he's also saying, they weren't particularly good friends. Why would he be writing to him? Really strange. And now, this is actually Jekyll's letter. So in mine, I've written Jekyll's letter. Okay, so this is now Jekyll's voice to Lanyon. So it's getting... Have you seen Inception, the film, like a dream within a dream within a dream? So we've now got a letter within a letter to a letter so just letters all over the place, filling us in on the information. Okay. Dear Lanyon, you're one of my oldest friends, and although we may have differed at times on scientific questions, I cannot remember, at least on my side, any break in our affection. There was never a day when, if you had said to me, Jekyll, my life, my honour, my reason depend on you, I would not have sacrificed my fortune or my left hand to help you. Lanyon, my life, my honour, my reason are all at your mercy. If you fail me tonight, I am lost. Please highlight, I am lost. There's a lot of guilt tripping going on here. So he's saying that even though we don't say much to each other, I would trust you with my life. And he's now saying, I need you to trust me with my life. Something like that. So without his help, I am lost. Very big, hyperbolic. I would probably put in a post-it note there. Quite hyperbolic. Is it that dramatic, or is he just being dramatic? We don't know yet. You might suppose, after this preface, that I am going to ask you for something dishonourable to grant. Judge for yourself. I want you to postpone all other engagements for tonight. Even if you were summoned to the bedside of an emperor, to take a cab, unless your carriage should be actually at the door, and with this letter in your hand for consultation to drive straight to my house. Paul, my butler, has his orders. You will find him awaiting your arrival with a locksmith. Okay, I've highlighted that. Why would you need to break into a door? That's the only reason you need a locksmith, isn't it? The door of my cabinet is then to be forced. Highlight that. And you are to go in alone to open the glazed press, letter E. So this is his doctor's way of categorising things. So he's explaining to him where to go, which drawer to look in to find the thing that he needs him to get. To open the glazed press, letter E, on the left hand, breaking the lock if it be shut, and to draw out, with all its contents as they stand, the fourth drawer from the top, or, which is the same thing, the third from the bottom. In my extreme distress of mind, I have a morbid fear of misdirecting you. But even if I am in error, you may know the right drawer by its contents, some powders, a file, and a paper book. This drawer I beg of you to carry back with you to Cavendish Square, exactly as it stands. So, if you could just go back and highlight extreme distress of mind and morbid fear. So whatever it is that's in that drawer is very, he's desperate for it. So morbid is deathly, you've got extreme, you've got distress, like he's going out of his head, making sure that he's directing him to the correct drawer. So he's asked Lanyon to go with Paul, break into his cabinet, go over to where his drawers are, take out this particular drawer and take the whole thing with him back to his house. Okay, this is the first part of the service. Now for the second. You should be back, if you set out at once on receipt of this, long before midnight. But I will leave you that amount of margin, not only in the fear of one of those obstacles that can neither be prevented nor foreseen, but because an hour when your servants are in bed is to be preferred for what will then remain to do. So he's basically said, once you got this letter, you got to crack on and get straight over to my house, get this drawer, get back to your house, and then at midnight the next thing's going to happen, which hopefully means that your servants will all be in bed and whatever it is I'm asking you to do won't be seen by other people. And yet he said, he kind of implied it's not dishonourable. It's quite hard to see how it isn't dishonourable at this point. At midnight, I have to ask you to be alone in your consulting room, to admit with your own hand into the house a man who will present himself in my name, and to place in his hands the drawer that you will have brought with you from my cabinet. Then you will have played your part and earned my gratitude completely. 5 minutes afterwards, if you insist upon an explanation, you will have understood that these arrangements are of capital importance, and that by the neglect of one of them, fantastic as they must appear, you might have charged your conscience with my death or the shipwreck of my reason. So what he's saying here is that you have to wait in your room. Don't use your servant to open the door, which is obviously what a doctor would normally do. He's saying, answer the door yourself, let this man in who's going to say that he's connected to me, and give him this drawer, and then you will have done the thing that will save my life. And then he's saying, if you insist upon an explanation, you will then understand how important it really is that he gives this drawer to this particular man. And I've also underlined where he says the shipwreck of my reason. So if you talk about reason being your rational brain, he's saying that his rational brain has been shipwrecked. So I'm really worried about reading this as a reader. I'm like, what is going on with Henry Jekyll? It feels like he's gone mad. Remember, the Victorians had a real obsession with madness and the human mind, things like that. Okay, so the last little paragraph of this letter. Confident as I am that you will not trifle with this appeal, my heart sinks and my hand trembles at the bare thought of such a possibility. Think of me in this hour, in a strange place, labouring under a blackness of distress that no fancy can exaggerate. And yet, well aware that, if you will but punctually serve me, my troubles will roll away like a story that is told. Serve me, dear Lanyon, and save your friend, Henry Jekyll. So there I've highlighted heart sinks, hand trembles, blackness of distress, and then I've also circled the word save. So this is absolutely critical to whatever it is that Jekyll's doing. It feels like this is the opportunity that Lanyon's got to actually save his friend. I'm going to read a bit more. I've got about 3 more minutes, I think, before I get cut off. So this is now Lanyon's voice again. Upon the reading of this letter, I made sure my colleague was insane. Circle, highlight, put a little arrow, post-it note, whatever. But till that was proved beyond the possibility of doubt, I felt bound to do as he requested. The less I understood of this farrago, the less I was in a position to judge of its importance, and an appeal so worded could not be set aside without a grave responsibility. I rose accordingly from table, got into a hansom, which remember is a taxicab, and drove straight to Jekyll's house. The butler was waiting my arrival. He had received by the same post as mine a registered letter of instruction, and had sent at once for a locksmith and a carpenter. The tradesmen came while we were yet speaking, and we moved in a body to old Dr. Denman's surgical theatre, from which, as you are doubtless aware, Jekyll's private cabinet is most conveniently entered. So remember when you did your research into Hunter, it's the house at the front, the theatre in the middle, which is not like it's the amphitheatre that he did experiments in, the guy who lived there before, and then on the other side is Jekyll's cabinet. I know you know that, sorry, I've probably told you that 4 times. The door was very strong, the lock excellent. The carpenter avowed he would have great trouble and have to do much damage if force were to be used, and the locksmith were near despair, which I have highlighted because it means like the door is like double reinforced, the lock is particularly strong, and the door frame has been reinforced as well, as if somebody really didn't want anybody to be able to break in. But this last was a handy fellow, and after 2 hours' work the door stood open, so they ended up not having to use the carpenter, the locksmith got in. The press marked E was unlocked and I took out the drawer, had it filled with straw and tied in a sheet and returned with it to Cavendish Square. So far Lanyon's done what he's been asked. Here I proceeded to examine its contents. The powders were neatly enough made up, but not with the nicety of the dispensing chemist, so that it was plain they were Jekyll's private manufacture, and when I opened one of the wrappers I found what seemed to me a simple crystalline salt of a white colour. The phial to which I next turned my attention might have been about half full of a blood-red liquor, which was highly pungent to the sense of smell and seemed to me to contain phosphorus and some volatile ether. At the other ingredients I could make no guess. The book was an ordinary version book and contained little but a series of dates. These covered a period of many years, but I observed that the entries ceased nearly a year ago and quite abruptly. Please highlight that. We'll have to come back and piece it all together at the end. Here and there, a brief remark was appended to a date, usually no more than a single word, double, occurring perhaps 6 times in a total of several hundred entries, and once very early in the list, and followed by several marks of exclamation. Total failure! ! So what I've written down the side of my book here, which you can either put in a post-it note or write down the side, is that Jekyll's obviously experimenting. And I've put a link to the context of the time. You know, a lot of doctors are experimenting, a lot of scientists. The idea that he's keeping a very detailed log is important because he has to be able to record all of his results. Okay, so I'm going to stop there just at the end of the total failure with the 3 exclamation marks because I'm going to run out of time on here. And then I'll carry on and do as much as I can on the next bit. I hope you all appreciate that I'm wearing leopard print today as well because I've really been missing it. I haven't worn any leopard print for like 4 weeks now. It's been driving me crazy. All right, bye.